Good day, and thank you for tuning in. For all of our new listeners and viewers, we thank you for allowing us to come into your listening and viewing environment. I'm Pastor Pope, and as always, we are here in 3D. So I'm going to begin by saying all of you know that we normally are here from 12:30 p.m. until 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, broadcasting live from the FijiWater.com sponsored studio. We are here Monday through Friday so that you can discuss whatever topics are important to you, whatever issues of life you find challenging or you find difficult to navigate. You can discuss careers, finances, entrepreneurship. You can discuss marriage, divorce, raising children, blending families. You can discuss dating and relationships. Right now, I'm going to discuss the technical issues that we have, and I received your text and your communications while I was working with our contractor to resolve the technical issues. And all of you were saying, well, if you get it repaired, if you get it done in time, can you broadcast for us a little later? So, I posted a notice saying saying that we would be going live at 1 p.m. And here we are. The system's back up. So I'm going to explain to you what's going on. It was nothing in our studio here that was the problem. It was on our back-end server where the contractor had to make some changes so that we could internally, for whatever reason, we had a storm here in the area, but for whatever reason, they're not here in our area, but for whatever reason, they were having some difficulties. And it did not allow us to literally go live even though we were live. And what I mean by that is all of our system was saying everything was go. And I'm looking and trying to navigate, and I ask everyone to bear with me as I got up out of the chair and all of those things. But then I realized nothing was going on here in our studio, so I had to call them, and they had to walk us through what they were doing so that we could see on the back end what was happening on our system. So here we are live at 1 p.m. in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast, which is brought to you daily by Fiji Water, Earth's finest water. You may already know that Fiji water comes from Fiji. However, did you know that it is created by nature? It is untouched by man. It starts as a tropical rainfall which slowly filters through layers of volcanic rock, where the water collects in a natural, sustainable artesian aquifer where it is bottled right at the source, free from human contact until you unscrew the blue cap. Fiji Water, Earth's finest water, will be delivered right to your front door when you subscribe for delivery, and you'll save money at FijiWater.com. This is not just ordinary water. This is Fiji Water at FijiWater.com. I want to say, pardon me, when you're doing things consistently, you tend to do them without any complications. From time to time, we've had some technical issues, whether it was on our own internal system or whether it was on our external server. But the reality is that we all know, and I said this while I was sitting in the chair earlier, technology is a blessing and a curse. Sometimes we just have no control over what's happening. We don't know why certain things happen. They just do. And someday, perhaps, technology will be in a place where we will not have these issues because it will be so expansive that not only surpass the level that it is right now, which is at a powerful level, but surpass this level and we'll be able to go through our daily lives without any interruption. But I want to thank all of you for tuning in, and for those of you who continue giving on the Give segment of our app at New Life-Delaware, and those of you that have made a weekly or monthly commitment to support the broadcast by giving on the contribution pages of our websites at newlifeministriesinternational.com and newlifeinternationalcdc.com. We thank you for your support and for your commitment as we fulfill our commitment to God to be here for you in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast. And for those of you who use the QR code or the link that is provided on Facebook and YouTube to support the broadcast, we thank all of you for your continued support and for the commitment you've made that we can be here in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast. I'm going to address a communication that came in, and I'm still laughing internally because I'm always amazed by the failures of technology. But technology is really relatively new. It's just that we've been able to do so much with it and change the way we live our daily lives through technology that I'm still amazed by everything that occurs. But I'm thankful for the opportunity to be here with all of our listeners and viewers every Monday through Friday from 12:30 p.m. until 1 p.m. in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast. So I'm going to address a communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that you and your boyfriend find it difficult to communicate about everything. However, you do not want the relationship to end, and you want to know what can you do to improve the communication. So, if this were something different, I would have a different response. But, one of the things that as I was prayerful about this communication, God showed me in that secret place of your life is that this is not, you don't have to end the relationship. And it's real simple for people to say, well, you've got to learn to communicate. But for some people, what does that really mean? Some people lack communication skills. Some people find it difficult to communicate at certain times. Some people find it difficult to communicate under pressure. Some people just find it difficult to communicate the way you might like them to communicate. But what I'm going to share with you, and you can ask your significant other to tune in to hear this also. I'm going to recommend that the two of you, to improve your communication, this is what God wants you to do. Sit in a room across from one another. Take time out to sit in the room across from one another. And whatever the issue might be at any particular time, don't revisit issues from 5 years ago. Talk to one another about the issue at hand. So if you sit across the room from one another on opposite sides of the room and sit with direct eye contact, looking at one another, having a conversation. Don't talk to let me rephrase that. Don't talk at your significant other. Talk to him. And one of the things, one of my deacons on Sunday when I was preaching the Sunday sermon, and I made a comment, and he said, the difference between cats and dogs. The truth of the matter is we have to understand that everyone's not going to communicate the way we want them to communicate. They're going to communicate according to their own ability. I'll give you a practical example of that. So when my daughter and I communicate, I always want to communicate exactly what my thoughts are. She wants me to communicate the way she wants me to communicate. And I'm constantly saying to her, as long as I'm answering your question, it shouldn't matter how I communicate. Because I don't know what's inside your head. I don't know the answer that you're looking for. But what I do know is the answer I have. So what you've got to understand is that men and women communicate differently, and our expectations of communication are different. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is sit across the room from one another. Just go to a room. I know it sounds like I'm sending you to separate corners to fight, but that's not what I'm doing. What I'm saying to you is sit across the room from one another. Make eye contact with one another. And this is something that you can work on doing. Make eye contact with one another and communicate based on your thoughts. So if you've got questions, you ask the question, and when he answers the question, you have to receive the answer the way he presents it. Not the way you want it in your head, because he's never going to give you that. And the reason he's not going to give you that is because he doesn't know what's inside your head. So you have to articulate your thought. You have to say exactly what you mean. Don't give him half of what you mean and expect him to guess the rest. And he'll respond to you accordingly. Now, when he responds, if he hasn't given you clarity, you might have to ask the question in a different way to get the answer that you're looking for, the complete answer that you're looking for. But mind you, when you ask the question in a different way, don't ask it in a way that it appears that you're trying to trap him into an answer. You're just looking for an answer. So he'll give you an answer. The problem that we sometimes have is that we don't like the answer that we get. And it might not even be something that is detrimental to your relationship. It might be as simple as, I want to find out how we can do something differently. So you might have to have a conversation about that. Some things are just not that important. We make them important because we want to make our point. So I've laughed about this in a Sunday sermon, and I'll share this. My wife doesn't like any trash in the house. So, we keep the trash in the garage, which means that when you're done with whatever you're using or whatever is going to create trash, you put it in the trash in the garage. And then, because every Friday our trash company comes to pick up our trash, I take the trash down to the curb on Thursday evening. Now, I'm going somewhere with this. So one of the things I tell my wife is, why don't we wait until the trash cans in the bathrooms are full before we take them down and dump them in the trash? But she doesn't like to do that. She will go around every day, collect the trash, and put it in the garage. But then, after she puts it in the garage, watch this. Even though the bag in the garage is half full, she wants me to take it out and put it in the trash cans that are outside of the garage. And I say, no, I'm not going to do that because the bag's only half full. And unless you place something in there that might create an odor, which I use, odor protected bags, but unless you're putting something in there that's going to produce an odor, then I'm not going to take it out until it's full. And what I said to her is, this isn't that deep, but we had a conversation about it, because I'm not going to take it out unless the bag is full. And then I put it outside the garage. Well, from time to time, she'll say to me, when are you going to take that trash in the garage out? Because she might go out into the garage for something. And I say to her, I'm not going to take that out until it's full. But it's an answer to her question. Now, as a man, and I'm sharing this with you because this is probably what your significant other is saying from time to time. I'm saying to myself, why are you asking me why I'm not taking that out when you see it's not full and there's nothing in there that's creating an odor? But men, I won't say never. We're generally not even going to ask that question. We might think it, but we're not going to ask it because it will lead to another discussion. And because we're men, we don't really want to have another discussion. So we might think it, we're not going to say it. Now, some men might say it, but that's something that they can live with. I'm not even going to address that. But I've answered your question. And what I'm saying to you is, when you ask a question, you may need some more clarity. He'll give you more clarity, but he's going to answer the question based on how he wants to answer it. And then he's going to do exactly what he wants to do. And sometimes that's not enough for you. Based on your communication, sometimes that's not enough for you. You have to learn to accept the answer and allow that to be enough. That will allow you to begin to communicate much better, much more effectively, much more efficiently, without disrupting your peace in your household. There's a way to live this out and live it to a better quality of life. Some things are just not that serious. Some things are just not that important. Now, this is going to take me into another communication, but I'm going to address them both because I saw some themes forming here. I have to admit that it's real important for all of us to live this life with a better quality of life. And sometimes we have to make adjustments. For example, I made an adjustment today. I had my whole day planned out, and you might not believe this, but that half-hour difference makes a difference. And being on the air from 1 to 1:30 does make a difference. But I'm saying that to say, sometimes we have to make adjustments. And the reason I made this adjustment is because all of you were shooting texts and communications saying, well, can you do it a little later today if you're not going to be able to be on? I thank you all for your desire to be in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast every day. Sometimes we might have to adapt, make some changes. And that was why I said, okay, you know what? I'm just going to go on the air at 1 o'clock today. There's an answer. Now, if I had said, well, we'll just be on the air tomorrow, you might have said. Now, I've had some of you ask me before, well, couldn't you do it at a later time if something goes wrong? But we don't always get it back up in an appropriate period of time. It might not be up until evening or whatever the case may be. But in this case, we were able to get it back up and to broadcast at 1 o'clock. And they told me that we would be able to do it by 1 o'clock. So here we are today. And everything we do should be leading to building a better quality of life. So I say to you, let's communicate. You all communicated with me today. That's why we're on at 1 o'clock to 1:30 instead of 12:30 to 1. But we've got to just communicate. And we've got to communicate better. Because we've been communicating certain ways for so long that we think that the wrong way is the right way to do it. And I'm going to address another communication in a moment. I've got to do a little business with and for our sponsor. This segment of the broadcast has been brought to you by T-Mobile, America's largest, fastest, and most reliable 5G provider at no extra charge. So if you're not currently a T-Mobile customer, you may call or text on the T-Mobile call or text line at 267-992-1424. We will move you into our queue so that you may become a T-Mobile customer and experience America's largest, fastest, and most reliable 5G provider at no extra charge. Taxes and fees are included in your bill. And if you auto pay by attaching a credit card to your account, you will receive a discount on your monthly bill. At T-Mobile, America's largest, fastest, and most reliable 5G provider at no extra charge. And for those of you who called me on the T-Mobile call or text line to ask about broadcasting, because then you send a text immediately following that, I want to say I did get your calls. I wasn't able to take them because I was on the phone with our contractor trying to make certain that we were up by 1 p.m. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that your husband says that you spend time searching for reasons to complain. And you said, finally, you've come to the realization he is right. I'm going to address that in a moment. You said, however, you do not know how to stop yourself. And you wanted to know, do I have any recommendations? Well, first of all, listen to this. God does not want us complaining. And how do I know that? The children of Israel murmured and complained in the wilderness when God brought them out of Egypt and was taking them to the promised land. They murmured, they complained. And what I mean by murmuring is, they got together in coffee clutches and they murmured about what they didn't like. And what they didn't like about Moses, what they didn't like about Aaron, what they didn't like about what God was doing. And then they would complain out loud. And it took them 40 years to get to the promised land, to get to what God had promised for their lives. And then watch this. Those who were in the wilderness, the reason it took 40 years is because God waited for all of them to die off, except for a couple of those who weren't involved in that mess. Okay, so I'll say this. Hallelujah that you realize the issue. It wasn't a matter, and this is why I said I'm going to address this. You come to the realization he's right, but it isn't a matter of him being right or wrong. It's a matter of what's correct. And the reason it's a matter of what's correct is because it's going to take correction. it's going to take correction of your normal behavior. Your normal behavior is that when you don't like something, even if it's not something you can do anything about, you complain about it. Now, I'm not talking about having conversations between husbands and wives. Sometimes, you're just having a conversation about something, it's not a complaint. But when it's a complaint, it means it's directed towards him or directed towards your life. And for those of us who are not living lives that have daily challenges, we're living life to its fullest, meaning we have a great quality of life. We're trying to maximize our success and experience the fullness of God. I always put the maximizing the success in the middle of experiencing the fullness of God because that requires the work. But you realize that he's correct and now you want to correct it. That requires work also. So there I am back to the work. So you ask if there's any recommendations because you don't know how to stop yourself. And, I could give you a real spiritual analogy, and I will, and then I'll give you a real practical analogy. We talked about this last week in Bible study, and that is, and I've talked about it many times over the years, whenever we open our mouth to speak, if we just stop and pause for a moment and say, what I'm about to say has to pass God's ear before it gets to the person I'm directing it to, and in this case, it's to your spouse. See, we think because it's our spouse that it's okay to say whatever we want to say because we're in a safe zone. I've shared with all of you how my wife and I have things strategically placed around our home, and on the door inside of our garage leading into the kitchen, it says faith zone. The faith will cover the safe. The faith will cover. We talk about our home, trying to live our home in a judgment-free zone. We don't, the goal is to eliminate reasons to complain, not to search out reasons to complain. If you're not in, and listen, we don't even want to complain if we're dealing with health issues. That doesn't mean that I can't say to my wife, my knee is bothering me, because she may have a recommendation for something I haven't done already. Maybe I haven't iced it. Maybe I haven't rubbed a solution on it that will relieve some of the pain. Maybe I haven't taken some Aleve. Maybe there's something I haven't done that she'll suggest, well, did you try that? And sometimes you're just saying something unconsciously out loud that you're thinking, right? That doesn't require a response, but someone may hear it, and there's only two of us in our household because our children have their own homes. We might be able to lend a suggestion to one another that will enhance the quality of our lives. That's okay. But when you're complaining about one another, you're disrupting the quality of your life. And really, what do you have to complain about? Because if you're having a health issue, you've got to trust God to resolve it. We're working every day, so we know that we're working to continue building wealth. So we're not hungry. We're not naked. We're not getting rained on. It stormed in our area this morning. We didn't get wet. Those of us who are living in an environment that God has provided for us, that is not challenging and not allowing us to suffer, we don't have any reason to complain. We really don't have any reason to complain. but we search out reasons. We have to change our state of mind. We have to change our mindset. We have to say to ourselves, look, everything's work. There's always going to be ebbs and flows. But we have to say to ourselves, okay, I'm not going to complain. You know, there's a song, I won't complain. Even if you feel like you have a reason to complain. I didn't say search one out. Even if you feel you have a reason, I won't complain. In other words, I'm going to trust God to work it out. I'm going to do my part to resolve whatever I'm challenged with, but I'm going to trust God to bring it to a successful resolution. We've got to recognize that every step of the way we've got to do our part. God's going to do his. So the spiritual aspect is we say to ourselves, what I'm about to say is going to be heard by God first, because he knows what we're thinking. So it's going to be heard by him first. Is it going to be acceptable to God, what I'm about to say? Am I speaking life or death into my spouse? Those are things we have to say to ourselves before we speak. That's why we've always heard the adage, think before you speak. You know, we've got to be cognizant of what consciously we are speaking into the atmosphere. Now, you say you don't know how to stop yourself. What you have to do to stop yourself from doing that, from complaining, is you have to trust God every day that you're right where you're supposed to be. Trust God that he'll resolve whatever issues you're dealing with. And you have to stop searching for things to complain about. You can't search for things to complain about. If you're walking around looking for things to complain about, there's not a problem. You're creating a problem. And you don't want to be someone who's creating problems. You want to enjoy the great quality of life that God has provided. This segment of the broadcast is brought to you by PorscheAmerica.com. If you're in the market for one of the finest high-performance automobiles ever manufactured, go to PorscheAmerica.com. You will find a dealership in your area. Wherever you are, you will find a dealership in your area that you can go and view the inventory, purchase a vehicle that they have in their floor plan, or if they do not have it, what you desire to own on their premises. They will help you to build out whatever you might desire to own. And if you already currently own a Porsche, one of the finest high-performance automobiles ever manufactured, and you're in our area, you can go to PorscheDelaware.com. Stop in at the dealership, which is one of our sponsors for our annual Achievers Golf Tournament, Porsche of Delaware. Ask to speak to Mike Didio, General Manager of Porsche of Delaware. He will make certain that you are taken care of, that you have the opportunity to view what they have in stock. And if they do not have what you desire to own on their floor plan, they will help you to order what you might like to own. And if you're just in need of service, ask to speak to Mike Adams, who is the service manager at Porsche of Delaware. He will make certain that an appointment is scheduled for you. They will pick up your vehicle at your home or office and drop a loaner car to you until your vehicle is serviced, and return your vehicle to your home or office when your service is completed. PorscheDelaware.com. So I'm going to wrap up today by saying this. I was going to address another communication, but I'm going to say this. Thank you to all of you who reached out because of the technical difficulty. I observed it immediately when we were supposed to go live. There was nothing going on in our internal studio, but as you can see, I responded to your request, and we have gone live from 1 to 1:30 today. Thank you all for communicating, for your calls, your texts, and we were able to be live today here in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast, which is sponsored daily by Fiji Water. A taste of paradise will be delivered right to your front door when you subscribe for delivery at FijiWater.com. Pardon, I'm looking again at our technology here going on. May God bless you today. May God keep his face turned towards you. May God give you peace that surpasses all understanding. Have a great day today. I look forward to being in your viewing environment.